Hi there and welcome back to my channel. Today we are going to be making a ham out of cabbage and coleslaw. And it's not that kind of ham, it's not food. No, we're going to be making a Tailor's ham. It is used for pressing curved seams for the most part and is incredibly useful and is definitely something I'm going to be needing for pretty much all of my future projects. The only thing you don't need it for is straight seams, basically. I have a number of projects coming up that require pressing seams that aren't exactly flat. My plan is to make this in a way that basically creates no waste and uses up previous waste from other projects. So we're going to start with a pattern. So I got one off of the internet. It is from the Portland Fashion Institute, which is actually not too far from where I live. It's just, one state down. It is a shape that I like. I've noticed some of the patterns have a very flat bottom, which ends up making it so that you have to do some gathering at the bottom and you end up with this puckering that I don't love. So I printed out the pattern and then I cut it out. The very first thing I had to do, because I knew it was going to take the most amount of time, was to create my coleslaw, as it were. So basically I took all of my previous scrap fabric and I made sure it was all natural fibers. It was actually all cotton. Traditionally, Tailor's hams are stuffed with sawdust, not fabric, but I wanted to do this in a way so that I was using materials that I already had and that I didn't have to go out of the house for. So what I did was I cut up a ton of fabric, and I mean a ton. I tried a couple of different methods for this. The fastest one I found was to cut my larger pieces into long strips and then cut each strip into a bunch of little pieces, kind of like a shredder. I actually did consider running it through a shredder, but I didn't want to risk wrecking mine. So I cut up all of my fabric pieces, and then once I felt like I had, a decent amount, and this was out of the smaller pieces of fabric that I had that I knew I couldn't use for the actual ham body. Once I got to that point, I paused my coleslaw making. It just makes me laugh every time. I can't take it seriously. So I took some scrap cotton that I had that I knew I'd be able to fit this on, made sure to cut it with the grain so that I didn't have any stretch, because we do not want stretch with this, and I marked and cut out the pieces. So that was the interior, and then I found from one of my previous mock-ups a white piece of quilting cotton that was absolutely perfect for the exterior, because I have a fabric picked out for the other side. So typically pressing hams, Tailor's hams, there's multiple things you can call them, have two sides. There is a smooth side and a side with a nap. Which is actually used to press things that have a nap, like wool. Typically they are made out of wool, but I did not have one on hand that I thought was quite right, and I wanted to make sure it wasn't something that the color could potentially come off on. So that definitely eliminated like any reds, any pinks, anything like that. So luckily I had in my fabric stash a pretty big, I think it's 3 or 4 yards of this lovely brushed houndstooth cotton. It's really soft. It's basically like a flannel, so it does have that nice nap to it, and I decided to make that one side, and then the other side is this white quilting cotton that I had on hand. And that was actually from the sleeve of my Christmas blouse mock-up. So the only thing that I took from non-offcut fabric or non-cabbage fabric was just one side, and it was out of a piece like I know I'm gonna have enough and it's gonna end up being cabbage anyway. So I was like, eh. So once I thought I had enough coleslaw cut up, I proceeded to backstitch the interior ham together. And I started stuffing. So I got about halfway through stuffing it and I realized I had nowhere near enough stuffing prepared, which was really frustrating because I had already been doing it for like a couple of hours a day for like a week. So I got out my blouse mock-up and I literally cut the entire thing up. So there is an entire shirt, part of a skirt mock-up, and then just various scraps from mask making in this thing. There's a lot of stuff in this. I would say I have probably about two baskets, like two of these baskets worth of fabric that was then cut down to be basically like confetti. I cut a bunch more of it, proceeded to play with it, because if you didn't put your hand into the thing of shreddy stuff, did you even make shreddy stuff? Important questions we all ask ourselves. I finally got it stuffed all the way. It sounds weird. So once I had enough coleslaw stuffed into this thing and it was feeling nice and firm and it wasn't like mushy or anything, you don't want it to feel like a pillow, like a sleeping pillow. So once I had the interior ham properly stuffed and ready to go, I whip stitched the end of it shut with a very small, tight whip stitch. Doubled up the thread. I wanted it to be nice and strong. So once I had that done, it was time to stitch together the exterior layer of the ham. So I took my lovely houndstooth fabric and my nice white quilting cotton, and I sandwiched them together, and I did a running stitch of those because I knew I was going to probably go back over it with a nice whip stitch just to tighten things up, because I wanted to make it so that it was uniform all the way around the edge, and I knew that the end was going to have to be whip stitched. So I did just a basic running stitch all the way around, and I gently stuffed the stuffed ham into it. So then I stuffed the ham into the cover. And I whip stitched that end closed just like I did with the interior. And then at that point, I was like, yeah, I do want to whip stitch the whole thing. So then I made the executive decision to whip stitch the entire way around it, because I thought, hey, that looks really nice and finished, and also it will lend a little bit of extra strength to this seam. So I did that. It also helped to decrease any extra fabric that there was on this thing. You want all of it to be very smooth if possible, and because the seams are curved, it's really easy for them to kind of bubble a little bit, which it still does, but it's definitely functional, and it will definitely serve me well as a pressing ham. So once I had that done, it was all done. And here it is. It's super cute. I'm really proud of how it turned out. Like, it's very smooth, and like very firm, which is, you know, what it's supposed to be. I mean, it does have a little bit of give, probably more than if I'd used sawdust, like it is traditionally done, but I really wanted to do this in a way that I wasn't creating extra waste, and that I also didn't have to go out into the world, because it's kind of scary there right now. So here it is. Sounds fun. I really enjoy how it sounds. I will be happily pressing lots of round seams with this thing. It's quite fat. Makes me happy. So if you enjoyed this video, give it a like, and if you want to see what I end up making using this ham, go ahead and subscribe. And I'll see you next time. It's nice to be done.